pictures on chats. Everybody became like foodies. You know, it's like a thing. So there's the bored and there's the foodie. Bored, by the way, when I say bored, people are like, no, that's not me. I'm never bored. When I say bored, I don't mean bored like twiddling your thumbs like you have nothing to do. That's not what I mean when I say bored. Bored means like there's nothing that I have to do right now or nothing stimulating me right now, so I'm bored. Not bored, I have nothing to do. Bored, there's nothing immediate to do or nothing stimulating to do, so my mind is bored, okay? So now that we defined it, it probably shows you that there are a lot more people than you realize that would fit into emotional eating, because when people think of an emotional eater, they think of it as like someone just like having a binge and pounding food. It's so not like that. It's really, really not like that. Like anyone that thinks that that's what emotional eating is, like does not understand emotional eating. So hungry, angry, lonely, tired, bored, a foodie. If any of you fit into that, which is most people, especially women, you are probably an emotional eater, okay? So now back to normalizing it. So the reason I'm normalizing it is not because I'm trying to be nice and sugarcoat it and be like, don't worry, it's okay to be an emotional eater. No, I'm normalizing it because if you don't think it's normal, if you think that you have like a condition or you have an issue, then you're less likely to deal with it, okay? Like a lot of people, when I promoted the course and whatever, messaged me and said like, they would only want to do it one-on-one, or they would only want to do it if there's no way that anybody could see their name on Zoom, or whatever. People are like embarrassed by it, and it's not embarrassing when you know for a fact that tons, I don't have a number for you, I don't have a statistic for you, but so many people are emotional eaters. That's just the way it is. Okay, so what we're doing is we're learning tools, and we're not treating it like curing it. We're learning how to handle it. I think that most emotional eaters will probably be somewhat of an emotional eater forever. I know that sounds depressing, but I don't think it's something you could be necessarily like cured from. I think it's something that you just learn to handle better with tools, okay? So it's almost like I know it's a bad analogy, but like let's say you have a difficult spouse and you're not planning to get divorced, or you cannot get divorced, right? So it's not like you're gonna get divorced and have a better spouse. You're gonna learn tools on how to deal with this spouse. It doesn't mean you'll be miserable. You might even be very happy once you learn the tools. So that's the goal, that we may not get rid of it, but we're gonna learn how to handle it. Make sense? Okay. Okay. Now, food, as we know, is a drug. Okay, how do we know? When there's, and it's an addiction, when there's all those Overeaters Anonymous things, right? There's gambling, drugs, alcohol, right? And food is one of them. Food is a drug. It is probably, in my opinion, the hardest addiction, okay? And I say in my opinion, I'll tell you why in a second, but it's the hardest addiction for a few reasons. One is we need food to live, right? Like if you stop doing drugs, nothing will happen if you don't do drugs, right? I mean, only good things will happen. If you don't gamble, you don't gamble. If you don't smoke or whatever, or drink, okay. But you need food to live, okay? Also, as women, we are the ones that make the food for our families, right? So we're always around it. Like we're making food, we're serving food, we're preparing food. Like we're always around food. So that presents another challenge. Like imagine a guy stopped drinking, like he's not an alcoholic anymore, but for the rest of his life he had to work in a bar and serve other people drinks. Like that would never happen, right? Or a guy stopped gambling, but for the rest of his life he has to work in the casinos and watch other people gamble. That would never happen. But like for someone who's addicted to food, if she's a woman, especially a Jewish woman, right, she's always going to be around food, right? Also, it's cheaper compared to other drugs. Actual drugs are expensive. Alcohol gets expensive. Gambling gets very expensive, right? Food is probably the cheapest thing. You can go into a bakery and get a Danish for like $1 or whatever. I don't know how much Danishes cost, honestly, but like it's one of the cheapest addictions. It's also instant gratification, meaning the second it hits your mouth, you feel good, right? Like it releases serotonin and you just feel good, right? As opposed to like gambling, at some point they get immune to it or desensitized, meaning like they have to risk more money in order to get a high. Same with drugs, they have to up their dosage to get a high. With food, it doesn't even really take more dosages to get a high. Like the second that Danish hits your palate or whatever, you feel good. Okay. Now, another reason that food is such a drug is because I said I'm not going into childhood, and I'm not. But one thing is, since we were kids, what are we always rewarded with? Food, right? Whether it's good or bad. Like, you did great on a test, food. You fell down, lolly. You have a boo-boo, lolly, you know? And I'm not gonna lie and be like, oh, I don't do that with my kids. My kids get, I don't know what. Yeah, of course I do it also, right? But that's how we're literally conditioned since we are little, that everything, if you want to feel better, here's food. If you did something great and you want to be rewarded, food. So it is ingrained in us since we are kids. Okay. So another thing that I'm going to say to normalize it is that the most people think, like, when they think of an emotional eater, they think of someone who's just like maybe like a mess, and or like